Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World that turns ordinary coins into extraordinary discoveries. If you've ever dismissed a quarter as just another piece of change, today's video might make you look at your loose coins a little differently, especially if you've got a 1979 Washington quarter dollar. Now don't let the date fool you. 1979 doesn't sound that old, right? But what if I told you that one special quarter from that year could be worth more than most people make in an entire year? Yes, you heard that right. So stay with me, because this is a story you don't want to miss. Let's start with the basics. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American currency since 1932, introduced to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By 1979, the design had become familiar to everyone: George Washington's iconic profile on the obverse, and the bold, majestic eagle perched on a bundle of arrows on the reverse, symbolizing strength and preparedness for peace. But what makes the 1979 version of this quarter stand out from the millions of others that were minted before and after? The answer lies in the details, and in the fascinating world of minting errors, varieties, and perfect preservation. Millions of these quarters were produced at mints across the country: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most went straight into circulation. They were used in parking meters, vending machines, and probably passed through hundreds of pockets. But a very small number were different. Now, let's talk about the things that set these rare quarters apart, and why collectors are going crazy for them. First, we have error coins, and this is where things get really exciting. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes happen. Most of the time, these go unnoticed. But in rare cases, they slip through the cracks and make it into circulation. One of the most famous and valuable types of errors found on 1979 quarters is the double die error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between strikes, creating a subtle, but noticeable, doubling of the design elements. You might see it on the letters in Liberty, or in the motto, "In God We Trust." Sometimes, even George Washington's eye appears doubled, giving him a ghostly or shadowed look. These doubling effects are not only fascinating, but they also skyrocket the value of the coin. Next, we've got off-center strikes, another minting anomaly that can make a 1979 quarter extremely collectible. This happens when the coin isn't perfectly aligned during the strike, leaving part of the design missing or pushed to one side. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. Then there are planchet errors, coins that were accidentally struck on the wrong metal blank. Imagine a quarter that's the size of a regular one, but it was struck on a nickel or even a foreign coin blank. These rare mishaps create coins that are completely unique and can command incredibly high prices in auctions. Let's not forget proof coins, specially struck coins with mirror-like finishes, made for collectors rather than general circulation. In 1979, the San Francisco Mint produced proof quarters, and occasionally, these coins can be found with rare variants or unusual die marks. A deep cameo proof quarter with a rare error or flaw can be worth a fortune, but rarity isn't just about errors, it's also about condition. Collectors use a grading system to evaluate coins, and the highest grades, like MS-67, MS-68, or even MS-69, are reserved for coins in nearly flawless condition. That means no scratches, no nicks, and razor-sharp detail. A 1979 quarter in perfect condition, especially one with a rare error, is extremely hard to come by. And that's exactly why collectors will pay top dollar to get their hands on one. And here's where things get really unbelievable. Among the countless 1979 Washington quarters, one specific coin, flawless, beautifully struck, with a rare mint error and preserved in near-perfect condition, was sold to an eager collector for an astonishing $68,000. That's right. $68,000, all for a coin that most people would overlook in a handful of change. It just goes to show, in the world of coin collecting, anything is possible. A simple quarter can become a piece of history, a rare collectible, or even a small fortune. So before you toss that old quarter into the tip jar or let it disappear into the couch cushions, take a closer look. You might just be holding something priceless. Today, we're diving into a coin that's been passed through countless hands, tossed into piggy banks, and forgotten in drawers, but for a lucky few, it's turned out to be worth far more than 25 cents. We're talking about the 1965 Washington quarter dollar. Now, before you say, "I've seen a million of those," hold on. Because while most 1965 quarters are common, there are some out there, just a handful, that are so rare, so unique, that collectors have paid mind-blowing prices to own them. And one of them? It sold for a price that could pay for a college education or even buy a brand new luxury car. Let's rewind to 1965. It was a time of big change in the U.S. economy. The country was dealing with a silver shortage, and for coin collectors, this was a huge moment. Before this year, U.S. quarters were made of 90% silver. But starting in 1965, the mint made a historic decision: they removed silver from the quarter entirely. From that point on, quarters were made from a clad composition, copper sandwiched between layers of nickel. So right away, the 1965 quarter stands at a turning point in U.S. coinage history. It was the very first year the U.S. stopped putting silver into its quarters. That alone makes this coin historic, but it's what happened during that change that makes some 1965 quarters worth a fortune. See, any time a transition like this happens at the mint, errors can and do slip through. That's exactly what happened in 1965. And that's where our story gets very interesting. Imagine this: the mint is switching from silver to clad coins. But somehow, a few old silver planchets, those silver blanks from 1964, got left in the machines. And then, they were accidentally used to mint 1965 quarters. That's right, some 1965 quarters were mistakenly struck on silver planchets when they were supposed to be clad. These accidental silver quarters are now among the rarest and most desirable coins in American numismatics, and here's the thing: they look almost identical to regular 1965 quarters at first glance. But there are ways to tell. First, the weight. A normal 1965 clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, while the silver ones are slightly heavier, around 6.25 grams. That tiny difference could mean the difference between pocket change and a life-changing payday. You'll need a good digital scale to find out, but trust me, it's worth checking. Next, the edge of the coin. Regular clad quarters have a visible copper stripe on the edge. But silver quarters? They have a solid, silver-colored edge. So take a close look at the side of your 1965 quarter. If there's no copper color, your heart should start racing, but it's not just silver errors that make this coin valuable. There are also double die errors where parts of the design, like the date or the word "Liberty," appear doubled. There are off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks, each creating a unique, collectible variation that can add serious value. Even a regular 1965 quarter with extremely high-quality strike, known as a mint state or MS condition, especially with sharp details and no wear, can fetch a premium. The best of the best, in what's called mint state 68 or higher, are rare finds because most quarters from that era were used heavily, and here's what collectors love most: many of these rare versions are still out there. They weren't recalled. They weren't pulled from circulation. In fact, they could be hiding in an old coin jar, sitting in your grandparents' drawer, or mixed in a roll from your local bank. That's why coin hunting is such a thrill, because the next big discovery might be just a pocket full of change away. So, what's the big number? How much could the rarest 1965 Washington quarter be worth? Well, one of these quarters, struck accidentally on a silver planchet, verified by experts, and preserved in near-perfect condition, was auctioned off for an unbelievable $78,000. That's right. $78,000. For a quarter that someone might have handed over for a candy bar, or left forgotten in a coin jar. It just goes to show, sometimes, the most valuable treasures are the ones we overlook. So the next time you see a 1965 quarter, take a second look. Weigh it. Check the edge. Examine it for errors. Because you never know, you might be holding history in your hand, and a small fortune. Today, we're diving into a coin that millions of Americans have held in their hands, but only a few have looked at closely enough. This is the story of the 1971 Washington quarter dollar, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every detail. At first glance, the 1971 quarter doesn't seem like anything special. It's not old enough to be an antique, and it's not new enough to stand out. But that's the trick, some of the most valuable coins are hiding in plain sight. And if you've got a 1971 quarter in your collection, you might want to take a very close look, because you could be holding onto a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. Let's start with a little background. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. The design on the obverse, Washington's strong profile facing left, was created by sculptor John Flanagan and has become one of the most iconic images in American coinage. On the reverse side, you'll find the bold American eagle, wings spread, perched atop arrows and olive branches, a symbol of peace through strength. Now, fast forward to 1971. This was a transitional time in the world of U.S. coinage. The mint had stopped using silver in quarters back in 1965, switching instead to a copper-nickel-clad composition. So every quarter from 1971 was supposed to be struck on this newer, cheaper metal blend. But as with many things involving machines and mass production, errors happened, and those errors? They're what make this coin so incredibly valuable today. Let's break it down. First up, wrong planchet errors. In some incredibly rare cases, a 1971 quarter was accidentally struck on a leftover 40% silver planchet, a blank intended for $50 or older coins. These silver-struck quarters weigh slightly more than the standard copper-nickel version, and the edge of the coin is usually the giveaway. If your 1971 quarter doesn't show that typical copper stripe on the edge, it might just be one of these ultra-rare silver errors. And that changes everything. Next, let's talk about double die errors. These occur when the coin die, the tool that stamps the design onto the blank, misaligns or strikes more than once in slightly different positions. This creates a doubling effect on the letters, numbers, or even parts of Washington's profile. If you see a shadowy or doubled appearance on the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date, 1971, you might just be staring at one of the most collectible quarters out there. Then we have off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die breaks. These might sound like technical terms, but they're actually the flaws that collectors love. A quarter struck off-center, with part of the design missing or pushed to the edge, becomes instantly more valuable. A clipped planchet means the coin was accidentally cut from the sheet incorrectly, leaving it with a crescent-shaped edge. Die cracks leave raised lines that can look like scars or lightning bolts across the surface of the coin. All of these are rare. All of these are collectible. And all of them can dramatically increase the coin's value. And here's the best part, many of these error coins slipped into circulation unnoticed. They weren't caught by quality control, and they weren't recalled. That means they're still out there, sitting in old coin jars, tucked in drawers, passed down in pocket change, or even wrapped up in bank rolls just waiting to be discovered. Collectors go crazy for 1971 quarters that are not only rare in error but also in exceptional condition. A coin that has never been used, never scratched, with a sharp, clean strike, and full detail, these are known as mint state coins. Combine that pristine condition with a rare error, and now you're talking about something truly extraordinary. And how valuable can a 1971 Washington quarter get? Well, in one particularly stunning case, a 1971 quarter with a rare off-metal error, struck on a silver planchet, in exceptional mint condition, authenticated and graded by professionals. This seemingly normal coin was auctioned off for an astonishing $73,000. Yes, you heard that right. $73,000. For a quarter, just imagine, you might have one sitting in your house right now. And all it takes is a second look. So, the next time you check your change, don't skip past that 1971 quarter. Examine the edge. Check the weight. Look closely at the lettering. Because in the world of coin collecting, that one overlooked detail could turn your pocket change into a life-changing payday. Today's spotlight is on a coin that might just be hiding in plain sight, one that millions of people have held, spent, or saved without realizing its true value. We're talking about the 1979 Washington quarter dollar. Sounds pretty ordinary, right? Just another quarter from a few decades ago? Well, not exactly. Because some of these coins, thanks to a combination of historical timing, minting mistakes, and rarity, have become extremely valuable. And one in particular? It's sold for more than most luxury cars cost today. So buckle up, because this isn't your average coin story. Let's rewind to 1979. The US was in a transitional phase, politically, economically, and yes, numismatically. The mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with the country's demand for cash. Most of those coins were churned out by machines running day and night, pumping out coins by the second. But in the rush of production, as is often the case, mistakes happened. And in the coin collecting world, those mistakes are pure gold. The 1979 Washington Quarter features the classic design by John Flanagan. On the obverse side, you've got George Washington's profile facing left, with Liberty arched across the top, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," to the left. The date, 1979, sits prominently at the bottom. Flip it over and you'll see the iconic heraldic eagle, wings spread, perched on arrows and olive branches, a symbol of American readiness for peace and strength. Now, here's where things get interesting. Though hundreds of millions of these quarters were minted, not all were created equal. In fact, a very small number of 1,979 quarters were struck with serious errors or unique traits that have made them stand out in the collecting world. Let's break down what you should look for. First, we've got the double die errors, and these are major. This happens when the coin die used to strike the design onto the blank is misaligned, producing a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. If you look closely and see doubling on the word Liberty, or the date, 1979, or even in Washington's eye or hairline, you may be holding a double die quarter. And that's something collectors are willing to pay top dollar for. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly aligned in the minting press, causing part of the design to be missing or pushed off to one side. The more off-center the strike, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date is still visible. Another highly sought-after error is the broad strike, a coin that was struck without the collar that shapes its edge, resulting in a wider, flatter coin with missing reading along the rim. These quarters look strange at first, but they're rare, and rarity means value. Now let's talk about one of the most surprising possibilities, a planchet error. Some 1979 quarters were accidentally struck on the wrong type of blank, such as a blank meant for a penny or foreign coin. These mismatched planchets can completely change the metal composition, color, weight, and value of the coin. And they are extremely rare. And here's something else to keep in mind: condition. Even if a coin doesn't have an obvious error, if it's in mint state condition, especially graded MS 66 or higher, its value can skyrocket. That's because most quarters go through years of circulation, scratched, dropped, tossed in jars, and passed through vending machines. A flawless 1979 quarter, fresh from the mint and preserved perfectly? That's a collector's dream. Now imagine this, a 1979 quarter, struck with a rare mint error, in pristine condition, professionally graded, and authenticated. The kind of coin that doesn't just sit in a drawer, it becomes the star of an auction, and that's exactly what happened. One of these rare 1979 Washington quarters, with a unique error and perfect mint condition, was sold for an astonishing $70,000. Yes, you heard that right, $70,000. For a quarter. Just think about that the next time you're handed a 1979 quarter in your change. It could be a once-in-a-lifetime find, a coin hiding incredible value behind an ordinary face. All it takes is a careful eye and a little knowledge, and that's exactly what this channel is here to give you. We're talking about the 1991 Washington quarter dollar, a coin you've probably seen 100 times, maybe even passed through your hands this week. But what if I told you that this common-looking coin could actually be one of the rarest, most valuable pieces hiding in plain sight? Yep, keep watching, because you might want to start checking your change a little more carefully. Let's kick things off with some quick background. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American currency since 1932, created to celebrate the 200th birthday of the nation's first president, George Washington. The obverse design by John Flanagan, featuring Washington's dignified profile, remained untouched for decades and became a symbol of American coinage. On the reverse side, the proud heraldic eagle sits with wings outstretched, clutching arrows and olive branches, a sign of peace through strength. Now let's fast forward to 1991. This time, the mint had fully moved to the copper-nickel-clad composition introduced in the mid-60s. Silver was long gone, and billions of coins were being produced every year. 1991 quarters? They were everywhere. Used in arcade machines, laundromats, toll booths, you name it. But here's where things get interesting. Not all of them were created equal. Despite the massive numbers, some quarters minted in 1991 were struck with major errors, and those rare mistakes have become prized gems in the eyes of collectors. Let's dive into the kinds of rare and unusual versions that could turn this 25-cent coin into a small fortune. First up, off-metal planchet errors. These happen when a quarter is mistakenly struck on a blank meant for a different denomination, like a dime or even a foreign coin. These errors are rare because the mint has tight controls, but mistakes still slip through. Imagine holding a 1991 quarter that's the wrong color, the wrong weight, or just feels off. That oddity could be worth thousands. Next, we have double die errors, one of the most coveted types of minting mistakes. These happen when the coin die imprints the design twice in slightly different positions. The result? Doubling in the letters of Liberty, In God We Trust, or even on the date, 1991. These can be subtle or dramatic, but either way, collectors love them. Then there's the off-center strike, which occurs when the coin blank isn't properly aligned with the die. That causes part of the design to be missing or shifted to one side. A dramatic off-center strike, especially one where the date is still visible, is a huge bonus in the collector world. We also see broad strike errors, where the quarter is struck without the retaining collar that forms the edge, creating a stretched out look and a missing reeded rim. It might look like a mistake to the untrained eye, but to a collector, that's art. Another rare issue with 1991 quarters comes from die breaks and die chips. These are raised bumps or lines on the coin caused by cracks or damage in the die. One famous form of this is known as the spitting eagle, where a die crack on the reverse makes it look like the eagle is spitting. It's quirky, it's collectible, and it adds value, but here's where things get really fun. Mint state condition. Most 1991 quarters have been through it all, scratched, nicked, rubbed down, and tossed around for decades. But on very rare occasions, a coin will survive in absolutely pristine condition. That means no scratches, no wear, and a flawless finish. These coins are graded by professionals, and anything at MS 67 or higher can start commanding serious prices. Combine a perfect condition quarter with one of the rare errors we just talked about, and you've got something truly special on your hands. And here's the jaw-dropping part. One of these rare 1991 Washington quarters, featuring a rare error, preserved in stunning mint state condition, and authenticated by grading experts, sold at auction for an unbelievable $63,000. Yes, you heard that right. $63,000, for a coin that people walk past every single day without a second thought. So the next time you're handed a quarter in change, or you dig one out of your old coin jar, take a closer look, especially if it says 1991. Because hidden among the millions are a few coins that aren't just valuable, they're life-changing. If you enjoyed this video and want to uncover more hidden treasures in your spare change, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. We've got more coin secrets, collector tips, and rare finds coming your way. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy collecting.